Today I've got a really compelling video of a caller, Mark from Brighton, who called into James O'Brien to give his take on the lamentable rise of political violence in the last decade. So let's get straight into the video because it's really incisive and important now more than ever.
Tell me why you picked up the phone today. What's going on here?
To let people know a few things. One, Charlie Kirk and Jesse Waters and all the rest of these people who are commentators on the American body politic are word pimps. That's what they do. That's how they got rich. That's how they move forward. Charlie Kirk, who died at the age of 31, was busy arguing with college kids. That's how he made his money. And people need to understand that. He wasn't debating, by and large, was not debating people of his own age or even of his own intellect. He was debating kids. And he said some really despicable things. Ask yourself this, James.
You and I find them despicable, but people who find them wonderful are really cross if we play them out, which is another odd element of this entire conversation.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you kind of have to sort of expect that. It's like, do as I say, not as I do.
Okay.
Look, Charlie Kirk was born in 1993. Martin Luther King was assassinated in 1968. What do you think Charlie Kirk knew about Martin Luther King?
Yeah,
to call him a despicable human being, or to say that the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was a mistake. The man was born in 93, and he's talking about an act that was passed in 1964. He was a word pimp.
Charlie Kirk was intelligent. He knew enough about the civil rights. He knows enough about race relations, Jim Crow, and the history of America to know what he's saying. And I think it's a mistake. He knows exactly what he's saying. He was a racist. He was a deeply racist, misogynistic man. And I think we need to be clear. His intentions were based in that ideology. He was a white supremacist.
Had no real experience about a lot of the stuff he talked trash about.
You don't sound as if you're as worried as I could be about what this might presage.
No, I mean, look, we've seen in America an attack on the capital of the country. Now, that's the political and spiritual seat of the United States of America. And people attacked it, and not only were they pardoned, some of them are lionized, and Donald Trump, with a straight face, talked about having a parade for one woman who was killed during it.
And that is the key point. Merrick Garland should have gone harder on these people. Trump should have been impeached. Trump should have been imprisoned for this. And it enabled the political violence we've seen over the last 4 years that has been increasing on the right. In 2022 alone, 25 mass shootings were done by right-wing extremists. That's all of them, 25. Just imagine if that was trans people, leftists, woke, they would be going insane. But we call this out, the left calls out the predominant violence on the right, and we're being divisive. How do you deal with these people when they're not living in reality and they don't care about the violence? That's what's really frustrating me at the moment.
I'm hearing condemnations of political violence from his supporters. I mean, I suppose it's a mistake to look for logic here, Mark, and that's the curse, isn't it, really? You're trying to find a rational explanation, but there can't be a rational explanation for somebody pardoning insurrectionists and complaining about political violence. It's not a rational approach.
Yeah. Of course not, and they don't complain about violence when it comes to children.
Nope.
The leading cause of death for children under the age of 14 in America is gun violence. Do people want to try and talk about that in the context of Charlie Kirk? Do people want to say that, for example, Sandy Hook, which was decried as a hoax by some of these same fellow travelers, does somebody want to say that that has something to do with Charlie Kirk? I mean, they use guns in both cases.
And again, he'd spoken about how some deaths were the price you pay for the necessity of the Second Amendment.
Of the Second Amendment,
but doesn't it? I mean, the more.
And also, on the day Charlie Kirk was assassinated, a young man, 16-year-old, Desmond Holland, in Colorado, tried to shoot his fellow students in his high school. This guy, young guy, was a neo-Nazi. He was found with white supremacist symbols and was radicalized online. Have you heard about this? No, because we're distracted by Charlie Kirk, which is a tragic incident. But happens every day, pretty much. Mass shootings, predominantly by the right wing, neo Nazis, white supremacists, white nationalists. This is what we need to talk about more because they are the one are trying to sow division. Charlie Kirk was a hateful figure. We need that's what his legacy should be.
You talk, the more it mounts up. It's imagine a wall. I don't know what the wall is. Decorum or democracy or decency. And the more stuff you're piling against that wall, surely the more likely it is that the wall will fall.
It is more likely, but right now, America's in the middle of one of the most bizarre periods of its history. And that history started when Donald Trump went down the escalator and decided he was going to run for president. What was that, 2015? And now we're...
Although that's true, the last 250 years of American history have been deeply divisive. Since the Civil War, it's been a political dynamic that, on one hand, celebrates liberalism, the pursuit of happiness, democracy, freedom, and on the other hand, illiberalism. And this is nothing new in American history. That's the tragedy. None of this is new.
10 years later, a full decade later, and the man, and by the way, I don't know if you've discussed it yet, but have you taken a look at the picture that he took yesterday with his mouth all drooping on one side?
I did see that. I don't want to read too much into it because I was uncomfortable when people speculated too much on Biden's health. But actually, in retrospect, that was probably a mistake. But he does look very odd at the moment.
Yeah, he does. And I mean, look, I can't, I'm not a doctor. I don't know anything about the man's health. Everybody, who was it? Carolyn Levitt says he's in great shape. Fine. Okay. But if you listen to what he says, never mind the drooping mouth. Listen to what he says. He repeats the same thing over and over and over again. And seems to have no clue that he's doing it.
Yes, and certainly the scrutiny that was applied to Joe Biden is not being applied to Donald Trump. But let's look at what he said yesterday. It's extraordinary, really. The media need to confront the fact that violence and murder are the tragic consequence of demonizing those with whom you disagree day after day, year after year. So he's now subscribing to the idea that there should be limits on free speech, having spent much of the last year insisting that there shouldn't be any and that we have a particular problem with it over here in the most hateful and despicable way possible. When he talks about those on the radical left, who is he talking about?
Anybody from Bernie Sanders to AOC to anybody who disagrees with him.
Anybody who thinks pardoning insurrectionists is not a very good thing to do. Anybody who thinks insurrection is not a very good thing to do.
Absolutely not. But I got to tell you, James, and this is a much wiser person than me. He happened to be my older brother. He passed away some years ago. He said to me once that you can't be halfway for the First Amendment. Now, the First Amendment is, you know, quite frankly, freedom of speech. And I've always believed throughout my life, after he told me that the way to counter bad speech is with better speech. And we don't hear enough of that.
Well, this is why Trump's comments yesterday are so difficult, isn't it? Because he's got almost that's why I played the two clips at the beginning, and you as a broadcaster will have appreciated that. The idea that the guy who sounded, to me at least, and I'm, as always on this program, open to contradiction, open to challenge, the guy who sounded to me quite measured and thoughtful has been fired by MSNBC, and the guy using words like avenge on Fox News is he's still in his job. He's probably going to get promoted.
Yeah, the former Bush consultant said something not controversial. Charlie Kirk contributed to the violent environment that he was a victim of. This is not controversial. He stirred up hate division against trans people, Muslims, anybody that didn't fit his Christian values. Like, should not be controversial. And also, the fact that everyone's pearl clutching now about, oh no, you can't say this about Charlie Kirk, while saying the left are the ones who don't let people have freedom of speech. Which one is it? Again, you really show, and again, they don't care about, you can't really call out the right's hypocrisy because they don't care. They don't have any values or standards. So it kind of doesn't work with them. That's the sad thing, like, they don't care. Like, why would they? Trump doesn't care. Like, these people, Charlie Kirk didn't care. They're not good faith.
Yeah, well, I mean, Jesse Waters is one of those guys who he's a word pimp, just like Charlie Kirk was a word pimp. These are people who speak to an audience that is, if you use church terms, it's a congregation of the converted. These are people who all believe in their heart of hearts that what they've been told is all correct, and that their job is to fight for what they've been told, no matter what idiot told them.
Don't stop and ask questions. Don't stop and ask for evidence. Just feel the anger, feel the hatred, and get out there and indulge it. And the people on the other.
And that is fascism. I've had this battle over the last few days. You call out the fact that 76% of extremist violence is from the right. They just can't accept that reality. They just like, what? Really? It's not leftists? They live in a different reality. They don't care about facts. They don't care about solving issues, gun violence, political violence. They thrive on it. They call for civil wars. They, are obsessed with invasions of brown people. That's what they want. This is fascism. We have to call it out because I don't think we've been calling out enough. Don't think we've actually been really hard on the fact that these people are so violent disproportionately. We've just kind of let it slip. Like same with January 6th. Why did we let this happen? We should have nipped it in the bud then. Now we're reaping the consequences.
The side of the argument who are saying, don't be guided by hatred, don't be guided by fury, condemn all acts of political violence, especially if they're undertaken by people who may be on a similar political page to you. They are completely drowned out. That's the bit I can't quite get used to yet. Is that some of it is cowardice, some of it is self-interest, some of it will be fear. You saw what happened to Stephen Colbert. But the idea that the narrative now is being defined by the people who are in favour of political violence and somehow managing to cast their political enemies as being the people who are in favour of political violence, when the polar opposite is true. The polar opposite is true.
Absolutely, the polar opposite is true. And until the people, and there's a guy, you know who John Leguizamo is?
Yeah, the actor.
Yeah. He's put out a series of posts, I guess it's on YouTube or whatever, and he makes more sense than all the rest of these clowns combined. Because what he says is that the people that you talk about, not the insurrectionists, not the people who believe everything Donald Trump says, but people who believe in better speech than what Donald Trump is spewing, need to get together, need to get strategic, and need to act. There
is no resistance. You need rhetorical resistance. But of course, he's attacking the rhetoric already when there isn't any. I mean, the more you dig into his words, the harder it is to sustain the idea that he's not on the ball at least some of the time, because there's a sort of pincer movement to his logic, but the completely at odds with reality it becomes. There are lines on there in various historical periods about how effective it is to accuse your enemy of doing exactly what it is that you're doing. So condemn all political violence. As Mark points out, the First Amendment, there is no better honouring of the First Amendment than to condemn absolutely always the idea of anybody being killed for their opinions, killed for their words, killed for their ideas, challenged, if they breach legal thresholds, prosecuted, but killed? Absolutely never. Tell me why you...
But they celebrate violence. They thrive on it. Fascism thrives on anti-intellectualism. It's all about emotion. It's all about othering a person and loyalty to the leader. That's what Trump embodies. That's what Nigel Farage embodies. And it's this deep anti-intellectualism, this opposition to evidence and reality, that is the most scary thing, because you will give them the facts that the right wing are predominantly violent, and they just simply don't care. They've read it on a GB News article or watched the video from Fox News saying the left are the violent ones, and they just believe it. It's this anti-intellectualism, which is the biggest threat, the misinformation, disinformation pipeline. And how do we solve this? There has to be reform of social media. I think that's the only solution, really. And I'm all for free speech. But when it's not embedded in reality and facts, it's making the environment more dangerous than it's ever been. And it's these demagogues on the right that are the problem. They are the problem. So tell me your thoughts below, and I'll see you in the next video.